The coffee cup shattered against the linoleum floor of Riverside Veterans Memorial Hospital. Dr. Nathan Cross stood over the woman in plain scrubs, his voice carrying through the entire cafeteria like a death sentence. "Security! Get this fraud out of my hospital!" Every head turned. The blonde nurse sitting alone didn't flinch. She just looked up at him with eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. What happened next would rip through that hospital like a grenade, because the quiet woman they were trying to throw out wasn't just any nurse. She was the ghost everyone thought was dead. And the doctor who wanted her gone had just made the worst mistake of his life. If you want to see how this story ends, how the forgotten become legendary and the powerful fall, stay with me until the final word. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. And hit that like button if you believe the quiet ones are always the most dangerous. The fluorescent lights in Riverside Veterans Memorial Hospital flickered the way they always did around 2 p.m., casting uneven shadows across the staff cafeteria. Olivia Marshall sat at a corner table with both hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee she hadn't touched in 20 minutes. The liquid had gone cold. She didn't care. Around her, the cafeteria hummed with the usual chaos. Nurses gossiped near the vending machines. Orderlies scrolled through phones. A cluster of doctors occupied the center tables like they owned the place, which, in a way, they did. Olivia heard fragments of conversation drift past. Someone's divorce, someone's new car. The kind of talk that filled empty spaces between shifts. She kept her head down, blonde hair pulled back in a functional ponytail, no makeup, no jewelry except a simple watch. 32 years old, and she looked like every other nurse who'd worked too many double shifts and stopped caring about impressions. Her scrubs were standard issue. Her shoes were practical. Nothing about her suggested she was anything other than forgettable. That's exactly how she wanted it. The double doors swung open hard enough to bang against the walls. Dr. Nathan Cross strode in like he was walking onto a stage. 6'2", salt and pepper hair, styled just enough to look natural, expensive watch glinting under the lights. He ran the trauma department at Riverside, and he made damn sure everyone knew it. 2 residents trailed behind him like baby ducks following their mother. Cross scanned the room with the practiced eye of someone who cataloged everything in terms of status and usefulness. His gaze snagged on Olivia's table, the corner spot near the windows that technically wasn't supposed to be used during staff meetings. His expression soured. "You." His voice cut through the cafeteria chatter like a blade. "That section is reserved." Olivia looked up slowly. Didn't see a sign. There doesn't need to be a sign. Cross moved closer, and the 2 residents flanked him automatically. "Authorized personnel only during department meetings. Are you authorized?" The cafeteria went quiet. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Olivia reached into her pocket and pulled out her hospital badge, setting it on the table without a word. Cross snatched it up, studied it with theatrical skepticism, then tossed it back. "Nurse Marshall, general rotation." He said it like an insult. "I don't recall seeing you at staff briefings. I work nights mostly." "Mostly." Cross leaned against the table edge, arms crossed. "Convenient. So what brings you to the day shift cafeteria during a scheduled department meeting?" "Getting coffee." One of the residents, a young guy with nervous energy, snorted. Cross silenced him with a look, then turned back to Olivia. "Coffee." He picked up her cup, swirled the cold liquid inside. "You've been sitting here for 30 minutes with cold coffee. Strange way to take a break." Olivia said nothing. She'd learned a long time ago that silence was a weapon most people didn't know how to fight. Cross's irritation sharpened. "I checked the rotation schedules this morning. Your name wasn't on any of them. So either you're lost or you're somewhere you don't belong." "I'm on medical leave." "Then you definitely don't belong here." Cross straightened, voice rising just enough to make sure everyone heard. "Medical leave means you stay home. It means you don't occupy staff spaces during operational hours. It means I can still get coffee if I want it." The cafeteria held its breath. Cross's jaw tightened. "Excuse me?" "I said I can still get coffee." Olivia met his eyes without blinking. Medical leave isn't house arrest. Somewhere near the vending machines, a nurse whispered to her colleague. Cross caught it, and his expression went cold. "Let me be very clear, Nurse Marshall. This hospital has standards, protocols, chain of command. If you're on medical leave, there's usually a reason. Stress, performance issues, disciplinary action. Whatever it is, you don't get to waltz in here and take up space like nothing's wrong. I didn't realize sitting was against policy. Don't get smart with me. Cross slammed his palm on the table hard enough to make the coffee cup jump. The sound echoed like a gunshot. I've seen your type before. Always got a chip on your shoulder. Always think the rules don't apply. Well, they do. And if you can't follow them, maybe you should reconsider whether this is the right career for you. Olivia's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Something dark and distant that lasted half a second before disappearing. One of the older veterans sitting 3 tables over, a man with a Vietnam patch on his jacket, set down his sandwich and watched carefully. Cross pushed harder. In fact, let's clear this up right now. What exactly landed you on medical leave? Because I don't remember signing off on anything. You wouldn't. Then who did? Hospital administration. Cross laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Administration doesn't grant medical leave without departmental approval, so either you're lying or someone bypassed protocol. Either way, it's a problem. Olivia picked up her badge and slid it back into her pocket. When she spoke, her voice was quiet enough that people had to strain to hear. I'm not lying. Prove it. I don't have to. Yes, Cross said slowly, enunciating each word like he was talking to a child. You absolutely do. Because right now, you look like someone trying to game the system. Someone who maybe exaggerated a little stress, claimed some trauma they didn't really experience, just to get a few weeks of paid vacation. The veteran with the Vietnam patch stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. Cross ignored him. Let me guess. Military service? Everyone's got a military story these days. Serves a couple years, maybe never even deployed, then comes home and suddenly they're damaged goods looking for sympathy. Dr. Cross, Shane. The veteran's voice was gravelly and low. Maybe you should... Sir, this doesn't concern you. Cross didn't even look at him. I'm handling an internal matter. Doesn't look like handling. Looks like bullying. Cross finally turned. And you are? Thomas Reeves. Medic. 1st Cavalry Division. Served 3 tours. The old man's eyes were hard. And I know what a combat medic looks like, even when they're trying to hide it. The cafeteria went very still. Cross recovered quickly. With all due respect, Mr. Reeves, this is a hospital matter. I appreciate your service, but she's got the look. What look? The one that says she's seen people die. Real close, real bad. Reeves nodded toward Olivia. Whatever she did, wherever she was, it wasn't some safe desk job. Cross's face flushed. That's pure speculation. For all we know, she filed paperwork at a base in Germany and now wants to act like she stormed the beaches at Normandy. Careful, Doc. Reeves's voice dropped to something dangerous. You're digging a hole. I'm stating facts. Cross turned back to Olivia, and there was something cruel in his smile now. So go ahead, Nurse Marshall. Tell us your big war story. What did you do that was so traumatic you need medical leave? What unit were you with? What battles did you fight? Olivia stared at her cold coffee for a long moment. When she finally spoke, it was barely above a whisper. Phantom Wing Medical. The name dropped into the silence like a stone into deep water. Most of the younger staff looked confused. One of the residents leaned over to whisper a question to his colleague, but Thomas Reeves went pale. His hand gripped the edge of the table. Cross laughed. Phantom Wing, seriously? That's the best you could come up with? Sounds like something from a video game. It's real, Reeves said quietly. Oh, I'm sure it is, in her imagination. Cross was on a roll now, feeding off the attention. Let me guess, top secret missions, classified operations, the kind of stuff you can't talk about because it's all very hush-hush? Olivia's knuckles went white around the coffee cup. That's what I thought. Cross gestured broadly to the room. See, this is the problem with stolen valor. People think they can claim anything as long as they attach the word classified to it. Can't prove it, can't disprove it, so they just shut your mouth. Reeves stepped forward. Right now. Or what? Cross rounded on him. You're a civilian, Mr. Reeves. This is my hospital, and I don't take orders from... The emergency alarm erupted through the building like a scream. Red lights flashed. The intercom crackled to life with a voice that was barely controlled panic. All available personnel to emergency. Multiple trauma incoming. Military transport accident. Repeat. Mass casualty event. All hands to emergency now. The cafeteria exploded into motion. Nurses bolted for the doors. Residents scrambled after Cross, who was already moving toward the ER with the swift confidence of someone who lived for moments like this. Olivia stayed in her seat. Reeves looked down at her. You gonna sit this one out? She didn't answer. Didn't think so. He grabbed his jacket. Better get moving then. Olivia stood slowly, left the cold coffee on the table, and walked toward the chaos. The emergency department at Riverside had seen bad days before. Car wrecks, industrial accidents, gang shootings. But this was different. This was coordinated chaos on a scale that made the walls feel too small and the ceiling too low. 4 ambulances screamed into the bay within 90 seconds of each other. 2 more were right behind them. The radio chatter was a constant stream of medical shorthand: blunt force trauma, internal bleeding, collapsed lung, suspected spinal fracture. Gurneys poured through the doors like an assembly line of broken bodies. Dr. Cross stood in the center of it all, barking orders, directing traffic. This was his element. This was where he thrived. Bay 3 needs intubation. Where the hell is respiratory? 2 units O-neg to Bay 1, now. Get radiology down here. I need a CT before this guy crashes. Nurses moved in controlled sprints. Residents struggled to keep up. Somewhere in the back, a patient was screaming. Equipment beeped in overlapping rhythms that sounded like a digital heartbeat on the edge of failure. Olivia walked in quietly and grabbed a trauma gown from the supply rack. Cross spotted her immediately. Marshall, what are you doing? Helping. You're on medical leave. You're not cleared for... You need hands. I have hands. That's not how this works. Cross moved toward her, but another ambulance bay alarm pulled him away. God damn it. Fine. Just stay out of the way and do basic vitals. Nothing critical. You hear me? Olivia tied the gown and moved toward Bay 4, where an EMT was wheeling in a man with half his face covered in blood. GSW, she asked. Negative. Blunt trauma. Transport rolled twice. The EMT was young, shaking slightly. He keeps drifting in and out. Olivia leaned over the patient, checked his pupils, felt for his pulse. Sir, can you hear me? The man's eyes fluttered open. He tried to speak, but only a wet gurgling sound came out. Possible tension pneumo, Olivia said calmly. Get me a 14 gauge and a flutter valve. The EMT hesitated. Shouldn't we wait for... Now. He moved. Olivia prepped the site, felt for the intercostal space, and inserted the needle with practiced precision. There was a hiss of escaping air. The man's breathing eased almost immediately. Cross appeared at her shoulder. What the hell do you think you're doing? I said basic vitals. He was decompensating. That's not your call. It is when he's about to die. Olivia didn't look up. She was already moving to stabilize the patient's neck. Possible C-spine fracture. We need a collar and a backboard before we move him again. Cross opened his mouth to argue, but the patient's vitals beeped steady for the first time since arrival. He stared at the monitor, then at Olivia, then back at the monitor. Fine, he said tightly, but you follow my lead. No more cowboy medicine. Olivia nodded once and moved to the next bay. The chaos intensified. More ambulances arrived. The ER was past capacity and starting to spill into overflow areas. Nurses worked with the grim efficiency of people who knew that every second counted and there weren't enough seconds to go around. In Bay 6, a young soldier was coding. 2 residents were doing compressions while a nurse struggled to get an IV line established. Cross pushed through the crowd. How long? 4 minutes. No rhythm. Epi? Already pushed 2 rounds. Cross swore and grabbed the defibrillator paddles. Charging to 200. Clear. The body jerked. The monitor flatlined. Again. 300. Clear. Nothing. Cross slammed the paddles down. Damn it! Time of death. Wait! Olivia was suddenly there, shouldering past one of the residents. She looked at the monitor, then at the patient's chest. Tamponade. What? Cardiac tamponade. Look at the neck veins, distended, muffled heart sounds. He's got blood in the pericardium. Cross stared at her. You can't possibly. Pericardiocentesis. Now. That's a surgical procedure. We don't have time to... Olivia grabbed a spinal needle from the crash cart, prepped the subxiphoid space, and inserted it at a 45-degree angle while watching the monitor. Blood flowed back through the syringe. The heart rhythm stuttered, then caught. The monitor beeped. Then again. Then steadied into a rhythm. The room went silent except for the sound of that steady beep. Cross stared at the monitor like it had personally betrayed him. That's not possible. It's textbook. Olivia withdrew the needle and stepped back. He needs surgery, soon. One of the residents was staring at her like she'd just performed a miracle. How did you know? Olivia didn't answer. She was already moving to the next bay. For the next hour, she worked with a quiet intensity that seemed to create a pocket of calm in the storm. Where other nurses rushed and fumbled, she moved with surgical precision. Where residents hesitated, she acted. No wasted motion, no second-guessing. Cross watched her from across the room, and something in his expression shifted from anger to confusion to something that might have been fear. "Who the hell is she?" one of the residents whispered. Cross didn't answer. Shatsuma. The initial wave of casualties finally stabilized around 4 p.m. The ER went from screaming chaos to controlled urgency. Patients were triaged, stabilized, and moved to surgery or ICU. The immediate crisis had passed. Olivia stripped off her trauma gown and washed her hands at the scrub sink. Her scrubs were splattered with blood. Her hair had come loose from the ponytail. She looked exhausted in the way that only comes from holding people's lives in your hands for hours at a stretch. Thomas Reeves found her near the staff break room. He held out a bottle of water. "Nicely done in there." Olivia took the water and drank half of it in one go. "Just doing the job." "That wasn't just doing the job. That was—" He trailed off, studying her face. "Phantom Wing Medical. That's a combat field hospital designation, classified operations in hostile territory." She didn't confirm or deny. "I knew a guy once who worked alongside one of those units. Said they were the best he'd ever seen. Said they operated in conditions that would make a civilian ER look like summer camp." Reeves paused. "Said most of them didn't talk about it after they came home." Olivia looked at him for a long moment. "Your guy was right." "About which part?" "All of it." Before Reeves could respond, the automatic doors at the main entrance burst open. Not the ambulance bay, the main entrance. The civilian side. 3 black SUVs had pulled up outside. Men in dark suits and military uniforms poured out with the kind of coordinated movement that spoke of serious training and serious authority. Hospital security rushed to intercept them, but the lead figure, a man in full military dress with enough ribbons on his chest to tell a dozen stories, held up credentials that made the security guards step aside immediately. The group moved through the lobby with purpose, heading straight for the ER. Nurses and staff scrambled out of the way. Dr. Cross emerged from one of the trauma bays, still in his blood-stained coat, ready to assert his authority over whoever these people were. "Excuse me, this is a restricted area. You can't just—" The officer in the lead, silver eagles on his shoulders marking him as a colonel, didn't even slow down. His eyes scanned the room in one practiced sweep, cataloging faces, searching for something. Then he saw Olivia. He stopped dead. His entire bearing changed. The other personnel stopped with him, following his gaze. Cross followed the look and saw Olivia standing near the break room door, water bottle in hand, looking like she'd just finished a shift and wanted nothing more than to go home. The colonel's hand came up in a sharp salute. "Captain Marshall." The ER went absolutely silent. Olivia's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted, something military and instinctive that she'd probably spent years trying to bury. "Colonel Briggs?" Her voice was flat. "It's just Olivia now." "The hell it is." Briggs lowered his salute but didn't relax. "Once a Phantom Wing medic, always a Phantom Wing medic." Cross made a strangled sound. "Captain? She's a captain?" "Was," Olivia said quietly. "Is," Briggs corrected. "You're still in the reserves. And after what you did for my unit—" He stopped, jaw working like he was trying to find words that wouldn't come. One of the younger officers behind him, a lieutenant with fresh combat ribbons, spoke up. "Sir, is this—" "Yes." Briggs didn't take his eyes off Olivia. "This is her. The medic from Kandahar." The lieutenant's eyes went wide. He looked at Olivia with something close to awe. Cross felt the ground shifting under his feet. "Kandahar?" Briggs finally looked at him, and the expression on his face could have frozen gasoline. "Who are you?" "Dr. Nathan Cross. I run the trauma department here." "Do you?" Briggs turned back to Olivia. "Then maybe you can explain why Captain Marshall, one of the finest combat medics I've ever served with, was sitting in a cafeteria looking like someone tried to throw her out of her own hospital." The silence was so complete that the sound of distant monitors seemed deafening. Olivia shook her head slightly. "Colonel, it's not—" "Don't." Briggs's voice was gentle but firm. "I know that look. I've seen it on too many good people who came home and got treated like they were invisible." He turned to Cross. "So let me make something very clear, Doctor. The woman you've been harassing saved 17 lives during a 12-hour firefight, in conditions that would make most people curl up and quit. She operated on casualties while taking enemy fire. She held an evacuation point together when everything around her was falling apart. And when my unit finally got extracted, she stayed behind to make sure every single wounded soldier got out first." Cross's face had gone white. "So when I see her sitting in a corner looking like someone told her she doesn't belong." Briggs stepped closer to Cross, and despite being several inches shorter, he somehow seemed to loom. "It makes me wonder what kind of hospital this is, and what kind of doctor would treat a decorated veteran like garbage." I didn't know it. You didn't ask." Reeves spoke up from the side. "That's the problem. You didn't ask, you just assumed." The colonel's radio crackled. One of his officers leaned in to whisper urgently. Briggs listened, then swore under his breath. "We've got more incoming," he said. "Federal personnel from the transport. VIP protection detail. They need immediate care and the civilian hospitals are overwhelmed." He looked at Olivia. She looked back. "No," she said quietly. I'm on medical leave for a reason, Colonel. I can't." "Yes, you can." Briggs's voice was firm, but not unkind. "I know what happened after Kandahar. I know why you stepped back. But right now people are dying and you're the best chance they have." Olivia's hands tightened around the water bottle until the plastic cracked. Cross, recovering some of his composure, stepped forward. "Colonel Briggs, I appreciate the situation, but this hospital has protocols. If Captain Marshall is on medical leave, I can't authorize." "You're not authorizing anything." Briggs didn't even look at him. "This is a federal emergency. My authority supersedes yours. Captain Marshall, I'm formally requesting your assistance." Olivia closed her eyes. Somewhere in the distance, ambulance sirens wailed. When she opened her eyes again, the exhausted nurse was gone. What stood in her place was something harder, sharper, more dangerous. "All right," she said quietly, "but I run triage my way. No interference." Briggs smiled for the first time. "Wouldn't have it any other way." The automatic doors burst open again. More gurneys, more blood, more screaming. Olivia moved toward them without hesitation, and everyone in her path instinctively stepped aside. Dr. Nathan Cross stood frozen in the middle of the ER, watching the quiet nurse he'd tried to humiliate transform into something he didn't fully understand. And in the back of his mind, a very small voice whispered that he'd just made a terrible, career-ending mistake. The first gurney came through with a man whose chest was caved in and whose breath came in wet, rattling gasps. 2 EMTs were doing compressions. A third was squeezing an ambu bag. "Talk to me," Olivia said. "Blunt force trauma, suspected flail chest, pneumothorax on the right side, blood pressure dropping. Get him to Bay 2. I need a chest tube kit, 4 units of ONEG, and someone who can intubate without shaking." She didn't raise her voice, but everyone moved faster. "Next." Another gurney. A woman with burns covering half her body. "Saline and silver sulfadiazine. Bay 4. Call the burn unit at Metro and tell them we're sending her as soon as she's stable." Next. A young man, maybe 25, with a piece of metal embedded in his abdomen and his eyes rolling back. Probable lacerated liver. Bay 1. Get surgical on the line now. The ER transformed around her. What had been barely controlled chaos suddenly had structure. Order. Purpose. Cross watched from the side, trying to find a place to insert himself, trying to reclaim authority that had somehow slipped through his fingers like water. One of his residents approached. "Dr. Cross, what do you want me to—" "Do what she says," Cross heard himself say. The resident blinked. "Sir, you heard me? Do what Captain Marshall says." The next 3 hours were brutal. Lives hung in the balance, swung back, hung again. Olivia moved through it all with mechanical precision, calling out orders, making split-second decisions, personally performing procedures that should have required surgical backup. At one point, a federal agent with a sucking chest wound started crashing. Olivia cut into his chest right there in the bay, clamped off a bleeder and held it manually until the surgical team could get him upstairs. Blood covered her arms to the elbows. She didn't stop. Briggs watched from the doorway, and there were tears in his eyes. By 7 p.m., the crisis had passed. Every critical patient was stabilized or in surgery. The ER looked like a war zone. Blood on the floors, discarded equipment everywhere, exhausted staff slumped against walls. Olivia stripped off her gloves, washed her hands for what felt like the 100th time, and walked outside into the cool evening air. Briggs found her sitting on a bench near the ambulance bay, staring at nothing. He sat down beside her without asking permission. 17 lives, he said quietly. That's how many you saved today. 17 more people who get to go home because you were here. Olivia didn't respond. I know it doesn't feel like enough. I know it never feels like enough. Briggs leaned back against the bench. But it matters, Liv. What you do matters. I left the service for a reason. I know. I can't keep doing this. I know that too. Briggs was quiet for a moment. But you did it today. And because you did, 17 families aren't getting death notifications tonight. Olivia's hands were shaking. She pressed them together to make it stop. Inside the hospital, Dr. Nathan Cross stood in his office with the door closed and his phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low and urgent. No, I understand. Yes, I realize the liability. I'm telling you it was a misunderstanding, a miscommunication. The voice on the other end was cold and official. Dr. Cross, we have multiple witness statements saying you publicly humiliated a decorated combat veteran, a veteran who then saved lives during a mass casualty event while you stood by and watched. Do you understand how this looks? Cross's jaw tightened. It was a mistake. I didn't know who she was. If I had known, that's the problem. You didn't know because you didn't care to ask. You saw someone you perceived as beneath you, and you treated them accordingly. I can fix this. Give me a chance to... That's not my decision. The hospital board is meeting tomorrow morning. I suggest you have a very good explanation ready. The line went dead. Cross set down the phone and stared at his hands. They were clean, perfectly clean. He'd washed them after the initial wave of casualties and never gotten dirty again. Outside, the sky had turned dark. Lights flickered on across the hospital complex. Somewhere in the distance, another ambulance siren wailed. And on a bench near the ambulance bay, a woman who everyone had looked down on sat in the darkness and tried to remember how to breathe. The trembling in her hands wouldn't stop. Olivia pressed them harder together until her knuckles went white, but the shaking just moved up her arms. She focused on breathing, 4 counts in, hold, 6 counts out. The technique therapist taught soldiers who came home with pieces of themselves left behind in desert sand. Colonel Briggs sat beside her in silence. He didn't try to comfort her, didn't offer platitudes. He just sat there like a wall between her and the chaos inside the hospital. You should go, Olivia said finally. Probably. I'm fine. No, you're not. Briggs pulled out a pack of gum, offered her a piece. She shook her head. He unwrapped one for himself. But you will be, eventually. You sound sure. I've seen you at your worst. This isn't it. Olivia let out a breath that might have been a laugh or might have been something else entirely. Kandahar was 4 years ago. Some things don't fade just because the calendar moves forward. They're supposed to. Says who? Briggs chewed his gum slowly. The people who write those discharge papers? The ones who hand you a pamphlet about PTSD and say, good luck figuring it out. The ambulance bay doors opened. 2 EMTs walked out, moving with the exhausted shuffle of people who'd been running on adrenaline for hours. They lit cigarettes without talking, just stood there breathing smoke and night air. Briggs watched them for a moment. I got a call 3 weeks ago. Command wants me to put together a training program for field medics. Real-world scenarios, combat conditions. They want someone who's actually been there to run it. Olivia didn't respond. I told them I knew someone. Best I'd ever seen. He paused. They said get her on board. No, I haven't asked yet. You're about to. Briggs smiled slightly. Fair enough. He stood, brushed off his uniform. Think about it anyway. No pressure, no timeline. Just think about it. I won't change my mind. Maybe not. He started walking toward the parking lot, then stopped and turned back. But that doctor in there, Cross, he didn't see what I saw today. He saw someone who made him look bad, and men like that don't forget. I can handle Dr. Cross. I know you can. Briggs's expression went hard. Question is whether you should have to. He left. Olivia sat alone on the bench as the sky turned from dark blue to full black. Somewhere above, stars tried to punch through the city's light pollution. Most of them failed. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hospital admin meeting 8 a.m. tomorrow. Your presence requested. Director Walsh. She stared at the screen until it went dark. Inside the hospital, the night shift took over with the quiet efficiency of people used to working while the rest of the world slept. The ER had been cleaned, floors mopped, equipment restocked, blood wiped away like it had never existed. Only the exhausted faces of the day shift staff told the real story. Dr. Nathan Cross sat in his office with the lights off. His computer screen glowed in the darkness, casting blue shadows across his face. He'd been reading the same email for 20 minutes. Dr. Cross, in light of today's events and several formal complaints filed by staff and witnesses, the hospital board has scheduled an emergency review of your conduct. You are required to attend a meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m. in the administrative conference room. Please bring any documentation you feel is relevant to your defense. Director Margaret Walsh, Riverside Veterans Memorial Hospital. Defense. They'd used the word defense. Cross's jaw clenched. He clicked through to his sent folder, scrolled back 3 months, and found what he was looking for. An email exchange with Margaret Walsh about staffing concerns. He'd flagged several nurses for what he called performance issues, really just people who'd questioned his decisions or made him look bad in rounds. Olivia Marshall's name was on that list. He'd written, Nurse Marshall shows concerning lack of initiative and appears to be coasting on minimal effort. Recommend performance review and possible reassignment. Walsh had responded, Noted. Will follow up after her medical leave concludes. Cross read it 3 times. Then he started drafting a new email explaining that he'd been concerned about patient safety, that his comments had been taken out of context, that everything he'd done was in the hospital's best interest. He got 4 sentences in before he deleted the whole thing. The truth was simpler and uglier. He'd seen a nurse he didn't recognize sitting in a space he considered his territory, and he'd decided to assert dominance. That was it. No patient safety concerns. No legitimate policy violations. Just ego. His phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and almost didn't answer. Dr. Cross? His wife's voice was tight. I just got a very interesting call from Janet Morrison. You remember her? She works in hospital HR. Cross closed his eyes. Sarah. She said you humiliated a veteran in the cafeteria today, in front of everyone. Said you accused her of stolen valor. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I didn't know who she was. And that makes it better? Sarah's voice cracked. My brother served 2 tours in Iraq, Nathan. You know what he went through. You know how people treated him when he came home. And you did the exact same thing to someone else. I made a mistake. You made a choice. A pause. Janet said this woman saved lives today. Saved them while you stood around trying to figure out how to save your reputation. Cross opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I'll be at my sister's tonight, Sarah said. Don't call me. The line went dead. Cross sat in the darkness and felt the walls closing in. The administrative wing of Riverside Veterans Memorial Hospital was deliberately designed to look important. Dark wood paneling, leather chairs, framed photos of past hospital directors going back to 1947. The conference room where the board met had a table that could seat 20 people and probably cost more than most nurses made in a year. At 7:45 a.m., Olivia walked in wearing clean scrubs and the same unreadable expression she'd worn in the cafeteria the day before. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup. No jewelry except that simple watch. Director Margaret Walsh was already there, along with 3 board members and a woman Olivia didn't recognize wearing a suit that screamed corporate legal. Captain Marshall, Walsh stood and extended her hand. Thank you for coming. It wasn't really a request. No, I suppose it wasn't. Walsh gestured to a chair. Please, sit. Olivia sat. The board members looked uncomfortable. One of them, an older man with military ribbons on his lapel, studied Olivia with the careful attention of someone trying to reconcile what he'd heard with what he was seeing. Walsh folded her hands on the table. I'll be direct. We have a situation that requires immediate attention. Yesterday's events have brought several issues to light, and we need to address them before this becomes a larger problem. What kind of problem? Olivia asked. The lawyer leaned forward. Public relations? Legal liability? Potential federal investigation. Federal? You saved the lives of federal personnel during a mass casualty event while technically being on medical leave and not authorized to practice. That creates complications. Olivia stared at her. So you're saying I should have let them die? No one is saying that, Walsh cut in quickly. What Ms. Rodriguez, the lawyer corrected. What Ms. Rodriguez means is that we need to document everything properly. Make sure all the paperwork reflects what actually happened. What actually happened, Olivia said slowly, is that your trauma director spent the morning humiliating me and the afternoon watching me do his job. The room went very quiet. The board member with military ribbons cleared his throat. Captain Marshall, we've reviewed the witness statements. Multiple staff members corroborated the incident in the cafeteria. Dr. Cross's conduct was problematic. Problematic. Olivia's voice was flat. Is that the official term? The official term, Walsh said carefully, is that Dr. Cross violated several hospital policies regarding professional conduct and treatment of veterans. He's being suspended pending a full investigation. Suspended. With pay, one of the other board members added quickly. Standard procedure. Olivia looked at each of them in turn. So he gets a paid vacation while you figure out how to make this go away quietly. Walsh's expression tightened. That's not what's happening here. Then what is happening? We're trying to do the right thing, Walsh said. For you, for the hospital, for everyone involved. The right thing would have been not hiring someone who treats veterans like garbage in the first place. The lawyer jumped in. Dr. Cross has an exemplary record. His performance reviews have been consistently. His performance reviews don't mean anything if he's a bully. Olivia stood up. Are we done? Please sit down, Walsh said. There's more we need to discuss. Olivia stayed standing. Walsh sighed. Your medical leave was granted 3 months ago due to acute stress reaction and recommendation from your therapist. The terms of that leave require periodic evaluation and clearance before you can return to active duty. I know the terms. Yesterday, you performed advanced medical procedures without authorization. You took command of an emergency situation. You acted as a ranking medical officer. Walsh paused. All of which suggests your condition has improved significantly. Olivia saw where this was going. You want me to come back. We want you to consider it. No. Captain Marshall, it's just Olivia, and the answer is no. The board member with ribbons spoke up. Miss Marshall, I served in the First Gulf War. I understand what you're going through, but yesterday showed that you're still capable of... Yesterday showed that I can function in a crisis, Olivia interrupted. It didn't show that I can function the day after, or the week after, or when I wake up at 3 in the morning thinking I'm back in Kandahar with mortars falling and people screaming. The room fell silent. I left the service for a reason, Olivia continued quietly. I took medical leave for a reason. Those reasons haven't changed just because I had a good day. Walsh started to respond, but the conference room door opened. Dr. Nathan Cross walked in. He looked terrible. His usual polished appearance had frayed at the edges, suit wrinkled, tie slightly crooked, dark circles under his eyes. He stopped when he saw Olivia. Dr. Cross, Walsh said sharply, this is a closed meeting. I know, I'm here to resign. Everyone stared at him. Cross pulled an envelope from his jacket and set it on the table. Effective immediately, I'm resigning from my position as trauma director and from my staff privileges at Riverside Veterans Memorial Hospital. Walsh picked up the envelope like it might explode. Nathan, you don't have to... Yes, I do. Cross looked at Olivia. I spent last night thinking about what I did, what I said, and I realized that this isn't the first time. It's just the first time I got caught. The lawyer's pen was moving frantically across her notepad. I've spent 15 years building a career, Cross continued, and I've spent most of that time treating people beneath me like they were less than human. Nurses, residents, patients who couldn't afford the best care. He swallowed hard. Yesterday, I publicly humiliated a decorated veteran because she was sitting in a chair I wanted. That's who I am. That's who I've become. Dr. Cross, the lawyer said carefully, I strongly advise you not to continue this conversation without legal representation. Cross ignored her. Captain Marshall saved 17 lives yesterday. I saved exactly 0. And the worst part is that I was angry about it. I was standing there watching her work, and all I could think about was how she made me look bad. He laughed bitterly. Not about the patients, not about the lives being saved, just about my ego. Olivia hadn't moved. Her expression hadn't changed. Cross reached into his other pocket and pulled out his hospital ID badge. He set it on the table next to the envelope. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't undo the damage, but it's all I have. He turned and walked out. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Walsh stared at the badge and envelope like they were evidence from a crime scene. Well, that was unexpected. The lawyer was already on her phone, texting furiously. Olivia sat back down slowly. Miss Marshall, Walsh said after a moment, I know this is a lot to process, but the offer still stands. We need good people, especially people with your skills and experience. I need time to think. Of course, take whatever time you need. Walsh slid a business card across the table. My direct line. Call me when you're ready. Olivia took the card without looking at it. The meeting ended. Board members filed out, whispering urgently to each other. The lawyer stayed behind with Walsh, already talking about damage control and public statements. Olivia walked out into the hallway and found Thomas Reeves waiting on a bench. Heard there was a meeting, he said. Figured you might want a friendly face after. How did you know I'd need one? Because I've been to those meetings. Reeves stood up with the careful movements of a man whose back hadn't worked right in decades. They always say they want to help. What they really want is to make problems disappear. Cross resigned. Reeves's eyebrows went up. Voluntarily? Apparently. Huh. Reeves started walking toward the elevator. Olivia fell into step beside him. Didn't expect that. Most guys like him fight until they're dragged out kicking. He seemed different, broken, maybe. Sometimes people need a break before they can rebuild. Reeves pressed the elevator button. Question is whether he'll actually rebuild or just find a new place to be the same person. The elevator arrived. They stepped inside. Walsh wants me to come back, Olivia said. What do you want? I don't know. Then that's your answer until you do know. The elevator descended. Don't let them pressure you into something you're not ready for. I've seen too many good people come home and jump right back into the fire because they thought they had to. Most of them burned out worse the second time. The doors opened on the ground floor. They walked through the lobby, past visitors and staff and patients in wheelchairs waiting for rides. Outside, the morning was bright and clear. Traffic hummed on the street. Somewhere a horn honked. Normal city sounds. Reeves pulled out his phone. Give me your number. Olivia recited it. He typed it in. There's a group that meets Thursday nights, he said. Veterans, some active duty, some retired. We get together, talk about things civilians don't understand. Sometimes we just sit around and drink coffee. He looked at her. You should come. I'm not good at group things. None of us are. That's kind of the point. A text came through on Olivia's phone. She glanced at it, an address and time for Thursday at 7 p.m. Think about it, Reeves said. No pressure. He walked toward the parking garage. Olivia stood on the sidewalk and watched the city move around her like water around a stone. People rushing to appointments, ambulances coming and going, the endless rhythm of a hospital that never slept. Her phone buzzed again. Different number this time. Captain Marshall, this is Colonel Briggs. Heard about Cross. Probably feels like a win. It's not. Men like that don't go away. They just relocate. Watch your back. And think about what I said. The offer stands. She deleted the message. Then she walked to her car, drove home to her tiny apartment with the broken blinds and the shower that never got quite hot enough, and sat on her couch in the quiet. The shaking in her hands had stopped. She didn't know if that was progress or just numbness. The news broke 3 hours later. Someone, probably someone on the board who talked to someone in the press, leaked a version of the story that was half truth and half spin. The headlines varied depending on the outlet. Trauma director resigns after confrontation with veteran nurse hospital. Under fire for treatment of former combat medic, veterans groups demand investigation into Riverside Memorial. By evening, the hospital's phone lines were jammed. Reporters camped outside the main entrance. Veterans groups started organizing protests. Social media erupted with takes ranging from supportive to vicious to completely made up. Olivia's name was everywhere. Her photo, pulled from an old military service record, circulated online. People she hadn't spoken to in years started calling and texting. Her apartment buzzer rang 6 times before she unplugged it. She sat in the dark and watched her phone light up with notifications until the battery died. At midnight, someone knocked on her door. She looked through the peephole and saw Colonel Briggs. He held up a bag of takeout food and a 6-pack of root beer. Olivia opened the door. "Figured you weren't eating," Briggs said. Figured right. He walked in without waiting for an invitation, set the food on her kitchen counter, and started unpacking containers. General Tso's chicken, fried rice, spring rolls. The place on 5th Street stays open late. "How did you know where I live?" "I'm military intelligence. It's literally my job to know things." He grabbed 2 forks from her drawer without asking. "Eat." They sat at her small kitchen table and ate in silence for several minutes. Finally, Briggs spoke. "Media's going to be a problem. I noticed. They're going to want interviews, statements, human interest stories about the brave nurse who stood up to the system." He stabbed a piece of chicken. "They'll make you into a hero whether you want to be or not." "I'm not a hero." "I know, that's what makes you one." Briggs paused. "But it also makes you a target. There are people who don't like their heroes complicated. They want simple stories with clear villains and happy endings." "This isn't a happy ending." "Exactly." He pushed the fried rice toward her. "Eat more. You look like you haven't slept in days." "I haven't." "Kandahar?" Olivia nodded. "Olivia." Briggs was quiet for a moment. "You ever talk to anyone about it? Besides the therapist they made you see for medical leave?" "No." "Maybe you should. Maybe I don't want to." "That's fair." He finished his food and started cleaning up. "But keeping it locked inside doesn't make it go away. It just makes it heavier." Olivia watched him move around her kitchen like he belonged there. "Why are you here, Colonel?" "Because I've been where you are. Different war. Different circumstances. Same weight." He turned to face her. "And because when I was at my worst, someone showed up with food and didn't ask me to be anything other than what I was. I'm paying that forward. I don't need saving." "Good. I'm not here to save you." Briggs grabbed his jacket. "I'm here to remind you that you're not alone, even when it feels like you are." He left. Olivia sat at her kitchen table with the remains of Chinese food and the quiet hum of her refrigerator, and the weight of everything that had happened pressing down like atmosphere. Her phone, now plugged back in and charging, buzzed with a new message. Unknown number. "You don't know me, but I was at the hospital yesterday. I saw what you did. My brother was one of the people you saved. He's alive because of you. I don't know how to thank you for that. I don't think words exist that would be enough. But I wanted you to know that what you did mattered. It will always matter. Thank you." Olivia read it 3 times. Then she read it again. Then she put her head down on the table and cried for the first time in 4 years. Thursday came faster than expected. Olivia drove to the address Reeves had sent, a community center in a neighborhood that had seen better decades. The building was squat and functional, with a parking lot full of older cars and a sign out front advertising bingo on Tuesdays. Inside, a dozen people sat in a circle of mismatched chairs. Some were old enough to have served in Vietnam. Some looked barely older than kids. All of them had that same look, the one Reeves had recognized in the hospital cafeteria. Reeves spotted her and waved her over. "Glad you came." "Not sure why I did." "Because you need people who understand." He gestured to the group. "Everyone, this is Olivia. She's the one you've probably been seeing in the news." Several heads nodded. No one made a big deal about it. A woman in her 40s with short gray hair spoke up. "We don't talk about what's in the news here. We talk about what's in here." She tapped her chest. "House rules. What's said in this room stays in this room." Olivia sat down in an empty chair. For the next hour, people talked. Some told stories. Some just sat and listened. One guy broke down halfway through describing a firefight, and two others moved their chairs closer without saying a word. No one tried to fix anyone. No one offered solutions. They just existed together in the weight of things that couldn't be explained to people who hadn't lived them. When it was Olivia's turn to share, she almost passed. Then she looked around the circle and saw faces that understood. "I can't sleep," she said quietly. "Every time I close my eyes, I'm back there. Kandahar. The evacuation corridor, mortars falling, people screaming for help, and I can't help them all. I can't save them all." Her voice cracked. "And the worst part is that even when I do sleep, I dream about the ones I lost. Not the ones I saved, just the ones who died while I was trying." The room was silent. Then Reeves spoke. "How many did you lose?" "3. "How many did you save?" Olivia looked at him. "How many live?" 41. 41 people are alive because of you. 3 aren't. Those numbers don't make the 3 matter less, but they also don't make the 41 matter less." Reeves leaned forward. "You're carrying guilt for 3 deaths and no credit for 41 lives. That math doesn't work." "It's not about math. No, it's about being human, and humans aren't built to carry that kind of weight alone." The meeting ended an hour later. People filtered out slowly, some exchanging phone numbers, some just nodding to each other. Olivia walked to her car and found Reeves waiting by the driver's side door. "You did good tonight," he said. "I barely said anything." "You showed up. That's more than most people manage." He pulled out a worn business card and handed it to her. "My number. Call me if you need to talk, or if you just need someone to sit in silence with you. Either works." Olivia took the card. She drove home through streets that felt less hostile than they had a few days ago. The weight was still there. It would probably always be there, but it felt more like something she could carry instead of something crushing her. Her apartment was dark and quiet. She turned on a lamp, made tea she wouldn't drink, and sat on her couch. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. "Miss Marshall, this is Margaret Walsh. I wanted to follow up on our conversation. The board has authorized me to make you a formal offer. Senior trauma nurse position, increased pay, leadership role in emergency preparedness. We believe your experience would be invaluable. Please consider it. We need people like you." Olivia stared at the message. Then another one came through. "This is Colonel Briggs. Final offer on the training program, full autonomy. You design the curriculum. You choose the pace. No pressure. Just real-world experience turned into something that saves future lives. Think about it. 2 offers, 2 paths, both asking her to go back into the fire in different ways." She set the phone down and walked to her bedroom closet. In the back, behind winter coats she never wore, was a box she hadn't opened in 4 years. She pulled it out and sat on the floor with it. Inside were her service medals, her unit patch, photos of people she'd served with, a folded American flag from a ceremony she barely remembered. At the bottom was a letter, handwritten, creased from being folded and unfolded too many times. She opened it and read words she'd memorized years ago. "Captain Marshall. I'm writing this from a hospital bed in Germany. They tell me I'm lucky to be alive. I tell them I'm only alive because of you. You held that corridor when everything was falling apart. You kept us together when we wanted to scatter. You saved my life and the lives of 16 other soldiers. I don't know how to thank you for that. I don't know if thanks are even possible for something like that. But I wanted you to know that because of you, I get to go home. I get to see my daughter graduate high school. I get to walk my wife through the door of our house and kiss her and tell her I love her. All of that is because you didn't give up on us. Thank you doesn't cover it, but thank you anyway. Sergeant Michael Torres." Olivia folded the letter and put it back in the box. Then she pulled out her phone and opened the text from Margaret Walsh. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Ambulances heading toward Riverside Veterans Memorial Hospital with people who needed help. People who were broken and bleeding, and hoping someone would save them. Olivia thought about 41 lives. She thought about 3 deaths. She thought about 17 people from yesterday who were alive because she'd stepped up when she wanted to run away. She started typing a response. Then she stopped. Then she deleted it. Then she set the phone down and stared at the wall until her vision blurred. Her phone buzzed again. Different number. She almost didn't look. Olivia, this is Dr. Nathan Cross. I know I have no right to contact you. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I wanted you to know that I've spent the last few days thinking about who I've become and who I used to want to be. They're not the same person. You held up a mirror and I didn't like what I saw. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just saying I'm trying to be better. And if there's anything I can do to make amends, anything at all, please let me know. I owe you that much and more. Olivia read the message 3 times. Then she blocked the number. Some debts couldn't be paid. Some apologies couldn't be accepted. Some people just needed to live with what they'd done and figure out how to be better without asking for absolution from the people they'd hurt. She went to bed. She didn't sleep. At 3 in the morning, her phone rang. Not a text. An actual call. She checked the number. Riverside Veterans Memorial Hospital. She almost let it go to voicemail. Then she answered, "This is Olivia." "Miss Marshall, this is Jennifer in the ER. I'm sorry to call so late, but we have a situation. Mass casualty event. Building collapse downtown. We're completely overwhelmed, and Director Walsh said to contact you directly." Olivia sat up. "How many casualties?" 20 so far. More coming. We need everyone we can get." In the background, Olivia could hear the familiar chaos, shouting, monitors beeping, the controlled panic of people trying to save lives while the world fell apart. "I'm on medical leave," Olivia said. "I know. Director Walsh said she'd clear it. She said to tell you that people are dying and we need help. We need you." Silence. "Miss Marshall?" Olivia closed her eyes. 41 lives, 3 deaths, 17 more yesterday. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, she said, and ended the call. She threw on clothes without thinking, jeans, a sweatshirt, shoes she could run in. Her hands moved on autopilot while her brain screamed that this was a mistake, that she wasn't ready, that stepping back into that chaos would break whatever fragile peace she'd managed to build. She went anyway. The drive to Riverside took 15 minutes through empty streets. Red lights meant nothing. Speed limits were suggestions. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel, and her breathing came too fast, but she kept driving. The hospital parking lot was chaos. News vans, police cars, ambulances lined up like planes waiting for runway clearance. She parked in a loading zone and ran toward the ER entrance. A security guard tried to stop her. "Ma'am, you can't—" She flashed her hospital badge without slowing down. The automatic doors opened and she walked straight into hell. The ER had tripled its normal capacity and still wasn't enough. Gurneys lined the hallways. Patients sat on floors holding pressure on wounds. The smell hit her first. Blood and concrete dust and that specific chemical tang of crushed building materials mixing with human tissue. A nurse she didn't recognize grabbed her arm. "Are you Marshall?" "Yes." "Thank Christ." "Bay 7. Partial building collapse on the Vic. We can't get him stable." Olivia moved before her brain caught up. Bay 7 held a man maybe 40 years old with his lower half buried under what looked like a chunk of ceiling. 4 people were trying to figure out how to move the debris without making things worse. "Stop." Olivia's voice cut through the panic. "Nobody touches that rubble." A young resident looked up. "But we need to— That's the only thing keeping him from bleeding out." She moved closer, assessed the compression points. "Where's vascular surgery?" "In OR2 with another critical." "Then we do this ourselves." Olivia looked at the team. "I need 2 large bore IVs, 6 units of O negative on standby, and someone who can place a tourniquet above the crush injury the second we move this debris. You have 10 seconds to tell me if you can't handle that." Nobody spoke. "Good. Get moving." They moved. Olivia positioned herself at the patient's head, checked his airway, felt his pulse. Weak, but present. His eyes were open, but unfocused. "Sir, can you hear me?" He managed a small nod. "We're going to get you out. It's going to hurt, but you're going to make it." She didn't know if that was true. She said it anyway because people needed something to hold on to. The IVs went in. The O negative arrived. Olivia coordinated the lift like she was directing an orchestra. 3 people on the debris, 2 ready with the tourniquet, 1 managing the I-Fi lines. On 3, 1, 2, 3. They lifted. The patient screamed. Blood poured from the crush injury. The tourniquet went on. Hands moved in controlled panic. Pressure here, more. Keep those lines open. Someone page vascular again and tell them if they don't get here in 5 minutes, they're going to have a corpse to deal with instead of a patient. The bleeding slowed but didn't stop. Olivia's hands moved automatically, checking vitals, adjusting the tourniquet, calling for more blood. Her training had kicked in and pushed everything else into background noise. Vascular surgery arrived at minute 4. They took over. Olivia stepped back and her hands were shaking again. No time to process it. "Marshall!" someone shouted from across the ER. "We need you in Trauma 1. She went. The next 2 hours blurred together. Patient after patient, decision after decision. Some made it, some didn't. She stopped counting after the 3rd body she helped bag for the morgue. Around hour 3, she looked up from a chest tube insertion and saw Director Walsh standing in the corner of Trauma 2, watching her work. Their eyes met. Walsh nodded once and left. By hour 4, the flood of casualties had slowed to a trickle. The critical cases were either in surgery or the morgue. The walking wounded were being treated in makeshift stations set up in the cafeteria and administrative offices. Olivia peeled off bloody gloves and walked to the scrub sink. Her reflection in the metal paper towel dispenser looked like someone else. Hollow eyes, blood on her collar, hair falling out of its tie. "You came back." She turned. Thomas Reeves stood in the doorway holding 2 cups of coffee. "I got a call." "You could have said no." "Yeah." Olivia took one of the cups. The coffee was terrible, but hot. "I could have." "But you didn't." "No." Reeves leaned against the wall. Building collapsed because of faulty construction. 5 years of violations the city inspector ignored. Someone probably got paid to look the other way. He sipped his coffee. 23 casualties, 8 critical, 2 DOA. 3 DOA, Olivia corrected quietly. "You lost someone?" 19-year-old girl, internal injuries. She crashed before we could get her to surgery. Olivia stared at her coffee. "She was still conscious when they brought her in, asked me if she was going to die." "What did you tell her?" "I lied." Reeves didn't respond. Sometimes there was nothing to say. The break room door opened. Margaret Walsh walked in, followed by 2 people in suits that screamed federal oversight. "Miss Marshall, a moment?" Olivia set down her coffee and followed them to a small conference room. The suits introduced themselves as hospital counsel and a representative from the state medical board. Walsh sat at the head of the table. "First, thank you for coming in tonight. You saved lives. Multiple sources confirmed that at least 6 patients wouldn't have made it without your intervention." "But," Olivia said, "but you performed advanced medical procedures while on medical leave, without formal authorization, without current credentialing." Walsh folded her hands, "which puts the hospital in a complicated legal position." The state medical board representative opened a folder. "Your medical license is current. Your military medical credentials are still valid. Technically, you are legally cleared to practice. But the hospital's internal protocols require—" "I know what they require." Olivia looked at Walsh. "You called me. Your ER nurse said you told her to contact me directly." "I did." "So this is what? You covering yourself after the fact?" Walsh's expression tightened. "This is me trying to navigate a situation where the right thing and the legal thing aren't the same thing. Which one matters more to you?" The room went quiet. Walsh leaned back in her chair. "What matters to me is that this hospital serves the people who need it most. Veterans. People who fell through every other crack in the system. People who have nowhere else to go." She paused. "And that requires keeping the doors open, which means managing risk." "So I'm a risk now." "You're a complication." Walsh pulled out a document. "This is a formal offer of reinstatement. Senior trauma nurse position. Full benefits. Leadership role in emergency preparedness and training. It also includes provisions that protect you legally for tonight's actions and clear the way for you to practice without restrictions." Olivia didn't touch the document. "And if I say no, then tonight gets classified as volunteer emergency response. No liability for you or the hospital. You go back to medical leave. We go back to being short-staffed and hoping the next mass casualty event doesn't overwhelm us completely." That's not much of a choice. No, Walsh agreed. It's not. But it's the choice we have. The hospital counsel jumped in. Miss Marshall, I want to be clear that accepting this position would require you to sign a waiver acknowledging that your return to active duty is voluntary and not the result of any coercion. Olivia stared at him. You mean a waiver saying that if I break again, you're not responsible? That's not how I would phrase it, but that's what it means. He didn't argue. Olivia looked at the document. Her name was already typed in. Someone had prepared this before she'd even arrived at the hospital tonight. They'd known she would come, known she couldn't stay away. I need time to think. Of course. Walsh stood. Take the weekend. We'll reconvene Monday morning. And if there's another emergency before Monday, then we hope we can handle it without you. Walsh walked to the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, I meant what I said in the email. We need people like you. The world needs people like you. But that doesn't mean you have to destroy yourself being one of them. She left. The suits followed. Olivia sat alone in the conference room with a job offer she hadn't asked for and a choice that felt like no choice at all. Her phone buzzed, text from Colonel Briggs. Heard about the building collapse. Heard you were there. You okay? She typed back. Define okay. His response came immediately. Fair point. Offer still stands if you need to talk, or if you need someone to tell you that walking away is also an option. Olivia pocketed her phone and walked back into the ER. The chaos had settled into the exhausted quiet of aftermath. Nurses cleaned equipment. Residents filled out paperwork. Someone had mopped up most of the blood. She found the nurse who'd first grabbed her, Jennifer, according to her name tag. The guy in Bay 7, the one under the rubble. Jennifer looked up from her charting and, in surgery, vascular thinks they can save the leg. Maybe. Good. Yeah. Jennifer studied Olivia's face. You were incredible tonight. Everyone's saying so. Like watching a completely different person than the one who sat in the cafeteria last week. I'm not a different person. Then why does it feel like you are? Olivia didn't have an answer. She walked out of the hospital into air that tasted like dawn and freedom and the weight of decisions she hadn't made yet. Her car sat in the loading zone with a parking ticket under the wiper. She grabbed the ticket and sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. This is Olivia. Miss Marshall, my name is Daniel Cross. I'm Nathan's brother. The voice was measured, careful. I know you blocked his number. I know you have every right to never speak to anyone in my family again, but I'm calling because I think you should know something. I'm listening. Nathan checked himself into a psychiatric facility yesterday. Voluntary admission. He's getting help for issues that go back a lot further than what happened with you. A pause. I'm not making excuses for him. What he did was inexcusable, but I wanted you to know that he's trying, for whatever that's worth. Why are you telling me this? Because Nathan said you were the first person in 15 years who made him see himself clearly. And sometimes the people who break us are the same ones who give us a chance to rebuild into something better. I didn't do that for him. I didn't do it for anyone. I know. That's what makes it matter. Daniel Cross exhaled slowly. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening. The line went dead. Olivia set her phone on the passenger seat and finally started the car. She drove home through streets turning pink with sunrise. Morning commuters were starting to appear, people heading to jobs they hated or loved or just tolerated. Normal people living normal lives without the weight of choosing who lived and who died. Her apartment felt smaller than it had when she'd left. The box of military medals still sat on her bedroom floor where she'd left it. The letter from Sergeant Torres was on top. She picked up the letter and read it again. Then she pulled out her phone and opened the message from Walsh with the job offer. Her finger hovered over the keyboard. Outside her window, the city woke up. Somewhere, ambulances were already running. Somewhere, people were already bleeding. Somewhere, someone else was making the same impossible choice she was staring at. She started typing a response. Director Walsh, Her phone rang. Caller ID showed Riverside Veterans Memorial Hospital again. She answered. Olivia Marshall. Miss Marshall, this is Dr. Helena Kim from the night shift. I'm so sorry to bother you, but we have a situation developing and I was told you might be the only person who can help. Olivia's chest tightened. What kind of situation? We have a patient in the ICU, military contractor, head trauma from the building collapse. He's crashing, and we can't figure out why. His medical records just came through from his previous deployment, and Dr. Kim's voice dropped. He has a history with Phantom Wing Medical. There's a note in his file that says if he ever presents with neurological symptoms, to contact Captain Olivia Marshall immediately, that you would know what to do. The world stopped. What's his name? Torres. Sergeant Michael Torres. Olivia's hands went numb. The letter fell from her fingers and drifted to the floor. Miss Marshall? Are you there? I'm here. Her voice sounded like it was coming from someone else. What are his symptoms? Elevated intracranial pressure. Pupils blown. CT shows massive hemorrhaging. We're prepping for emergency craniotomy, but the neurosurgeon doesn't think he'll survive it. His file says you treated him for a similar injury overseas, that you developed a non-standard protocol that saved his life. Olivia closed her eyes and saw Kandahar. Saw Torres bleeding out in the dirt while mortars fell. Saw herself making a decision that every textbook said would kill him, but keeping him alive anyway. I need to see his current scans now. I can send them to your phone if... I'll be there in 15 minutes. She hung up, grabbed her keys, ran for the door, and stopped. Because on her kitchen table, next to the cold coffee and the unanswered job offer, was the business card Thomas Reeves had given her, the one with his number for when she needed someone who understood. She picked up her phone and dialed. He answered on the first ring. Olivia? I need you to do something for me. Name it. If I go back to that hospital right now, I might not be able to leave again. Not because they won't let me, because I won't let myself. Her voice cracked. Someone I saved 4 years ago is dying, and they're saying I'm the only one who can help, and I don't know if I can do this again, but I can't let him die when I know I might be able to save him. Reeves was quiet for 3 seconds. Where are you? My apartment. I'll meet you at the hospital in 10 minutes. You don't have to do this alone. You don't even know this person. No, but I know you, and that's enough. Olivia grabbed her jacket and ran. The drive back to Riverside took 12 minutes. She broke every traffic law that existed and invented new ones. Her phone was mounted on the dashboard, streaming Torres's CT scans while she drove. Pupils fixed and dilated, massive subdural hematoma on the left side, midline shift that meant his brain was being crushed inside his own skull. She'd seen this exact pattern before. Kandahar. Different war zone, same injury. The hospital parking lot appeared, and she didn't bother finding a spot. Just abandoned the car near the ambulance bay and sprinted through the automatic doors. Dr. Helena Kim met her in the hallway outside ICU, young, Korean, eyes that said she hadn't slept in 30 hours and wasn't planning to start now. He's in Bay 12. Neurosurg is scrubbing in, but they're giving him maybe 20% odds of surviving the procedure. Show me. They move fast. ICU Bay 12 had machines everywhere. Ventilator, cardiac monitor, IV pumps running what looked like every vasopressor in the pharmacy. And in the middle of it all, unconscious and dying, was Michael Torres. He looked older than Olivia remembered. Gray at his temples, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there in Kandahar. But it was him. She moved to the bedside and pulled up his latest scans on the monitor. The hematoma was massive and expanding. Standard protocol said emergency craniotomy. Cut open his skull, drain the blood, hope he survived. Standard protocol had a 20% survival rate. Talk me through what happened, Olivia said. Kim pulled up the chart. Came in 6 hours ago from the building collapse. Initially stable, GCS 15, no obvious deficits. We did a CT as precaution because of the mechanism of injury. It showed a small subdural, maybe 10 milliliters. Neurosurg evaluated, decided to watch it. And then, 2 hours ago, he started declining. Headache, confusion, then unconscious. Repeat CT showed the bleed had expanded to 80 milliliters. We've been trying to manage the pressure medically, but it's not working. Olivia studied the scans. The pattern was identical to Kandahar. Small bleed that looked stable, then catastrophic expansion. Torres had a clotting disorder the military never properly documented. Something genetic that made him bleed into his brain whenever he took even minor head trauma. In Kandahar, she'd done something no one had ever tried, something that should have killed him but didn't. Where's the neurosurgeon? Scrubbing in. They're taking him to OR in 10 minutes. Page them. Tell them to hold. Kim hesitated. Miss Marshall, I don't have the authority to. Then get someone who does. Olivia didn't look away from the scans. If they take him to surgery right now, he dies on the table. I've seen this before. I know what happens. What happens? They open his skull, the pressure drops too fast, and his brain herniates through the opening, dead in under 2 minutes. Kim went pale. That's not standard progression. It is for him. He has a clotting disorder that makes standard procedures lethal. Olivia finally looked at her. In Kandahar, I managed his pressure with controlled hypothermia and gradual decompression over 18 hours. Kept him sedated and cooled while his body reabsorbed the hematoma on its own. It worked. That's not a recognized protocol. I know. It could kill him. Surgery will definitely kill him. This gives him a chance. Kim stared at Torres, then at the scans, then at Olivia. I can't authorize this. It's too far outside standard care. Who can? Director Walsh, maybe, but it's 5 a.m. and… Call her. Kim pulled out her phone. Footsteps in the hallway. Thomas Reeves appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. Olivia. She turned. You didn't have to come. Yeah, I did. He moved into the room and saw Torres. Who is he? Someone I saved once. Someone I need to save again. Reeves looked at the machines, the scans, the organized chaos of a life hanging by pharmaceutical threads. What do you need? I need everyone to trust me when I say I know how to fix this. Done. What else? Before Olivia could answer, a man in surgical scrubs strode in, mid-50s, confident in the way that came from hundreds of successful surgeries. He looked at Olivia like she was an obstacle between him and his patient. I'm Dr. Raymond Pierce, neurosurgery. You need to step away from my patient. Your patient is going to die if you operate on him. Pierce's expression went cold. Excuse me? He has an undocumented clotting disorder. Standard craniotomy will cause catastrophic brain herniation. I've reviewed his medical history. There's no mention of any clotting disorder, because the military never documented it properly. But it's in his classified medical file from his deployment with Phantom Wing Medical. Olivia pulled out her phone and opened the photos she'd taken years ago of Torres's records. See this? Factor V deficiency with paradoxical intracranial bleeding on decompression. I treated him for it in Afghanistan. Pierce looked at the photos, then at Kim. Dr. Kim, how did this woman get access to classified military medical records? I was his treating physician. Olivia stepped closer. I'm the one who figured out his condition. I'm the one who kept him alive when everyone else said he was dead. And I'm telling you that if you cut into his skull right now, he won't make it off the table. And I'm telling you that without surgical intervention, the expanding hematoma will cause irreversible brain damage within the hour. Pierce turned to Kim. Get her out of here and prep the patient for OR. Wait! Director Margaret Walsh appeared in the doorway. She wore yoga pants and a sweatshirt, hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked at Olivia. Dr. Kim called. Said you have an alternative protocol. Controlled hypothermia and gradual medical decompression. I've done it before on this exact patient with this exact injury pattern. That's not evidence-based medicine, Pierce cut in. That's experimental treatment based on a sample size of one. One who survived when your method gave him 20% odds. Walsh held up a hand. Everyone stop. She looked at Pierce. What's your honest assessment of his surgical survival? Pierce's jaw tightened. 20 to 30%. The hematoma is large and expanding, but it's his only chance. Except it's not. Olivia pulled up Torres's old scans from Kandahar on her phone. This is him 4 years ago. Same injury, same pattern. We tried surgical decompression on another patient with the same condition. He died during the procedure exactly the way I described. Torres was next in line. I made the call to try conservative management instead. Walsh studied the scans. And it worked. He walked out of that hospital 3 weeks later. Pierce made a frustrated sound. This is absurd. You're asking me to abandon proven surgical technique for some field medicine experiment. I'm asking you to listen to someone who knows this patient's medical history better than anyone in this hospital. Olivia's voice stayed level, but something sharp edged underneath. You're a good surgeon, Dr. Pierce, But you're about to kill a man because you won't admit there might be something you don't know. The ICU bay went silent except for the steady beep of the cardiac monitor. Walsh closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, she looked at Pierce. If we do conservative management and it doesn't work, can you still operate? Possibly, but every hour we wait increases the risk of permanent damage. And if we operate now and she's right about the herniation? Pierce didn't answer. Walsh turned to Olivia. If I authorize this, you're in charge of his care. Complete authority. But if he dies, it's on you. I understand. I mean it, Miss Marshall. If this goes wrong, the hospital will not protect you. The legal exposure alone? I said I understand. Walsh looked at her for a long moment. Then she turned to Pierce. Stand down. We're trying Captain Marshall's protocol. Pierce's face went red. Director Walsh, I'm formally objecting to this decision. It's medically reckless and noted. Your objection is on record, but this is my call. Walsh's voice went hard. And if you have a problem with it, you can take it up with the board on Monday. Pierce stared at her, then at Olivia, then at Torres. Fine, but when this patient crashes, remember that I warned you. He walked out. Walsh exhaled slowly. Dr. Kim, Captain Marshall is now the primary physician on this case. Give her whatever she needs. Yes, ma'am. Walsh looked at Olivia. Don't make me regret this. She left. The ICU bay felt larger suddenly. Just Olivia, Kim, Reeves, and Torres hooked up to machines that were keeping him barely alive. Kim spoke first. What do you need? Olivia moved into the space that Pierce had vacated. Her hands stopped shaking. Her breathing steadied. The nurse who couldn't sleep and the veteran who couldn't let go disappeared. What stood in their place was Captain Olivia Marshall, combat medic, Phantom Wing Medical. Cooling protocol. Target temperature 33 degrees Celsius. Start with ice packs and cooling blankets, then switch to intravascular cooling catheter, if we can get one. Kim started writing orders. Increase sedation, propofol drip at 200 mics per kilo per minute. Add fentanyl for pain control. I want him completely unresponsive. Got it. Mannitol and hypertonic saline for osmotic diuresis. We need to pull fluid out of his brain tissue slowly. Very slowly. Too fast and we trigger the herniation. Dosing? Half the standard dose. We're going to titrate based on his ICP readings every 30 minutes. Kim looked up. Every 30 minutes? That's going to take 18 to 24 hours. Yes. Olivia pulled up a chair next to Torres's bed. Which is why you should get someone to cover your other patients. This is going to be a long day. Kim hesitated. You're really going to sit here for 24 hours? However long it takes. And if it doesn't work? Olivia looked at Torres, unconscious, dying, completely unaware that the woman who'd saved him once was trying to do it again. Then at least he won't die alone. Kim left to arrange coverage. Reeves pulled up another chair and sat down beside Olivia. You need anything? Coffee? Food? Someone to tell you that you're doing the right thing? I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. But you're doing it anyway. Yeah. Then that's enough. Reeves settled back in his chair. I'll stay. Keep you company. You don't have to. I know. The cooling protocol started. Ice packs around Torres's head and neck. Cooling blankets wrapped around his torso and legs. His body temperature started dropping degree by degree, while Olivia watched the monitors like a hawk watching prey. The first hour passed. No change except the slowly declining temperature. Second hour. His intracranial pressure started dropping. Not much, just 5 points, but movement in the right direction. Third hour. Dr. Kim came back with coffee and a tablet showing updated scans. ICP is down to 28. That's good, right? It's a start. Dr. Pierce stopped by the nurse's station, asked how the patient was doing. What did you tell him? That he was stable. He looked... Kim paused. He looked disappointed. Olivia didn't respond. She adjusted the propofol drip and checked Torres's pupils again. Still fixed, still dilated. No change. By hour 5, word had spread through the hospital. Nurses found reasons to walk past ICU Bay 12. Residents whispered in the hallways. Someone had leaked to the media that the nurse from the cafeteria incident was attempting an experimental treatment on a military contractor. Director Walsh appeared at hour 6 with hospital security. We've got reporters outside, 3 different news vans. How did they find out? Does it matter? Walsh looked at the monitors. How's he doing? Pressure's down to 23, temperature stable at 33. No signs of herniation. That's good. It's early. Walsh studied Olivia's face. When's the last time you slept? Can't remember. When's the last time you ate? Also can't remember. Walsh disappeared and came back 20 minutes later with sandwiches from the cafeteria. Eat. Doctor's orders. Olivia ate mechanically, eyes never leaving the monitors. Hour 8 brought the first crisis. Torres's blood pressure dropped suddenly, from 120 over 70 to 80 over 50 in under a minute. Alarm screamed. Kim rushed in. What do you need? Vasopressors, norepinephrine. Start at 0.1 mics per kilo per minute and titrate to maintain systolic above 90. The medication went in. Blood pressure stabilized. Olivia's hands were shaking again. Reeves noticed. You okay? No, but I can't stop now. Hour 10. The ICU day shift changed to night shift. New nurses came in to check on the patient everyone was talking about. They looked at Olivia sitting in the same chair she'd been in for 10 hours and whispered to each other. Hour 12. Torres's ICP dropped to 18. Normal range was 5 to 15. They were getting close. Kim checked the latest scans. The hematoma's smaller. Look, it's gone from 80 milliliters to 60. Olivia allowed herself the smallest flicker of hope. Hour 14. Dr. Pierce returned. He stood in the doorway watching the monitors, arms crossed. Still alive, he said. I'm surprised. Why? Because you wanted to be right, or because you actually care about the patient? Pierce's expression darkened. I care about evidence-based medicine, not cowboy procedures based on gut feelings. Then look at the evidence. Olivia gestured to the scans. ICP down by 40%, hematoma reabsorbing, no signs of brain herniation. Your surgery would have killed him. My protocol is saving him. We don't know that he's saved yet. No, but we know he's not dead, which is more than your approach offered. Pierce opened his mouth to respond, but Walsh appeared behind him. Dr. Pierce, my office. Now. He left without another word. Walsh lingered in the doorway. Keep me updated. Hour 16. Olivia's vision started blurring. She'd been awake for nearly 36 hours straight. Reeves noticed her swaying in her chair. You need to sleep. Can't. Olivia, I said I can't. Her voice cracked. If I leave and something happens, if I close my eyes for 5 minutes and his pressure spikes, if I step away and he dies because I wasn't here, she trailed off. Reeves was quiet for a moment. In Vietnam, I saw a lot of good medics destroy themselves trying to save everyone. The ones who survived weren't the ones who never lost anyone. They were the ones who knew when to ask for help. I don't need help. You've been sitting in that chair for 16 hours. You're exhausted. Your hands are shaking. And you're still 3 hours away from knowing if this protocol actually works. Reeves leaned forward. I'm not saying abandon him. I'm saying let someone else watch the monitors for 30 minutes while you close your eyes. Olivia wanted to argue, but her body was shutting down whether she wanted it to or not. 30 minutes, she said finally. Dr. Kim watches him. Any change at all, she wakes me immediately. Deal, Kim agreed. Olivia moved to a cot in the corner of the ICU bay, laid down fully clothed, and was unconscious in under a minute. She woke 28 minutes later to Kim's hand on her shoulder. He's waking up. Olivia was on her feet before her brain fully processed the words. She moved to Torres's bedside. His eyes were moving under the lids. His fingers twitched. Reduce the sedation, Olivia said. Slowly. I want him to come up gradually. The propofol drip decreased. Torres's eyes fluttered open. Unfocused at first, then sharpening. He looked around the room, at the machines, at Kim, at Reeves. Then he saw Olivia. Recognition hit his face like a physical blow. Captain? His voice was rough from the breathing tube they'd removed an hour earlier. What? Where am I? Riverside Veterans Memorial. You took a hit to the head. Subdural hematoma. Torres tried to sit up. Olivia pushed him back down gently. Easy. You've been out for almost 20 hours. 20 hours? He closed his eyes. Last thing I remember is the building coming down. I was trying to help get people out, and something hit me. Then nothing. Your old condition came back, the clotting disorder. The one from Kandahar. Yeah. Torres was quiet for a moment. You saved me again. Not yet. We still have to get you through the next 24 hours without complications. But I'm alive. Yeah. Because of you. Olivia didn't know what to say to that. Torres reached out and grabbed her hand. His grip was weak, but there. Thank you doesn't cover it. It didn't cover it in Kandahar, and it doesn't cover it now, but thank you anyway. Kim cleared her throat. I should call neurosurgery. Let them know the patient is awake and responsive. She left. Reeves stood. I'll give you two some privacy. He left too. Torres and Olivia sat in the quiet of the ICU bay with machines beeping steadily and dawn light starting to filter through the windows. I wrote you a letter, Torres said. After Kandahar. Did you get it? I got it. I kept meaning to track you down. Say thank you in person. But I didn't know how to find you and... He trailed off. Life got in the way, I guess. It's okay. Is it? Torres studied her face. You look tired. Like you've been carrying something heavy for too long. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar, Captain. You were a terrible liar in Kandahar, too. He squeezed her hand. What happened to you after we got extracted? Olivia looked at their joined hands. I came home. Got out of the military. Tried to be a normal person. Failed at it pretty spectacularly. Nobody who does what we did gets to be normal. That's not how it works. I'm starting to figure that out. The ICU bay door opened. Dr. Pierce walked in with Walsh and two people Olivia didn't recognize, one in a suit, one in a military uniform. Pierce looked at Torres, awake and alert and very much alive. Something in his expression shifted. Captain Marshall. The man in uniform stepped forward. I'm Lieutenant Colonel James Hartley, Defense Medical Intelligence. We need to talk. Olivia's chest tightened. About what? About how you just performed an undocumented medical procedure on a contractor with classified medical history. Hartley pulled out a tablet. I have some questions about how you accessed Sergeant Torres's military medical records that are supposed to be sealed. I was his treating physician in Afghanistan 4 years ago. Your access to those records should have been revoked when you left active duty. Olivia's mind raced. She'd photographed Torres's files before leaving Kandahar because she'd known someone would eventually need them. She'd violated protocol doing it, violated it again by keeping them. I kept copies for his medical safety, in case something like this happened. That's not authorized retention of classified material, Captain. That's a felony. The room went very quiet. Walsh stepped forward. Colonel Hartley, with all respect, Captain Marshall saved this man's life using information that wouldn't have been available otherwise. If she hadn't kept those records, then this patient would have received standard medical care from qualified neurosurgeons. Hartley looked at Pierce. Dr. Pierce, in your professional opinion, would the patient have survived traditional surgical intervention? Pierce hesitated. He looked at Torres, awake, alert, showing no signs of brain damage. Then he looked at Olivia. Truthfully, Pierce said slowly, no. Based on what I've seen of his medical condition and the progression of his injury, standard craniotomy would likely have resulted in catastrophic herniation. Captain Marshall's protocol saved his life. Hartley's expression didn't change. That's not what I asked. Actually, it is. Pierce's voice went firm. You asked for my professional opinion. My professional opinion is that this woman made the right call with the information available to her. And if you're planning to prosecute her for saving a life, then you can add my testimony to her defense. Hartley stared at him. You're willing to go on record with that? Absolutely. Walsh stepped closer. As am I. Captain Marshall acted in good faith to save a patient's life. If the military has a problem with that, they can take it up with our legal department. The man in the suit spoke for the first time. I'm afraid it's not that simple. This hospital has been under federal review for the past 6 months. Multiple complaints about workplace harassment, credential violations, and substandard emergency response protocols. Today's incident with Captain Marshall and the unauthorized medical treatment falls directly under that investigation. Olivia felt the ground shifting. What investigation? The one that started after Dr. Nathan Cross filed a formal complaint with federal regulators, claiming this hospital was employing unqualified personnel and covering up medical errors. The words hit like a physical blow. Walsh went pale. What? Dr. Cross submitted documentation 3 months ago alleging that Riverside Veterans Memorial was systematically hiring under-credentialed staff and falsifying records to maintain federal funding. He specifically named several nurses, including the man in the suit checked his tablet. Olivia Marshall claimed she was practicing medicine without proper licensure. Olivia's brain stuttered. Cross had filed the complaint 3 months ago, right before she went on medical leave, right before everything fell apart. That's insane, Walsh said. Captain Marshall is fully licensed and credentialed. Dr. Cross's allegations are completely unfounded. Perhaps, but they triggered a federal investigation that's been ongoing since January. And this incident, an unlicensed individual performing experimental medical procedures, doesn't exactly help your case. She's not unlicensed, Pierce cut in. I verified her credentials myself this morning. Active medical license, current military reserve status, credentials that exceed standard nursing qualifications. The man in the suit pulled up something on his tablet. According to Dr. Cross's documentation, Captain Marshall falsified her military medical records and has been operating under credentials she didn't actually earn. Silence. Then Torres spoke up from the bed, voice weak but clear. That's bullshit. Everyone turned. Sergeant Torres, Hartley started, you need to rest. I need to tell the truth. Torres tried to sit up. Olivia helped him. I was there in Kandahar. I watched Captain Marshall save 41 lives under enemy fire. I watched her perform procedures that most surgeons wouldn't attempt in a fully equipped OR. She didn't falsify anything. She earned every qualification she has by keeping people alive when everyone else said it was impossible. Sergeant, your testimony is noted, but I'm not done. Torres's voice got stronger. You want to know who's falsifying records? Look at whoever's pushing this investigation, because someone's lying, and it's not Captain Marshall. The man in the suit exchanged glances with Hartley. We'll take that under advisement. You do that. Torres locked eyes with Olivia. And while you're at it, maybe ask why a doctor who spent his career treating people like garbage suddenly became a whistleblower right before he got caught. Walsh's phone rang. She glanced at it, frowned, and stepped into the hallway. She came back 30 seconds later with an expression that could freeze helium. Colonel Hartley, we need to talk, privately. They left the ICU bay. Olivia stood in the quiet aftermath, feeling like the floor was about to drop out from under her. Pierce cleared his throat. For what it's worth, Captain, I'll testify on your behalf. I was wrong about your protocol. I was wrong about a lot of things. Why? Because I just watched you save a man I would have killed. That tends to change your perspective. He left. Olivia sank into her chair. Her hands were shaking again. Torres watched her with concern. You okay? Define okay. Fair point. He managed a weak smile. Whatever happens next, you've got people in your corner. That counts for something. Does it? Before Torres could answer, Walsh came back in. Her face was hard. We have a problem. Walsh closed the door behind her and leaned against it like she needed the support. Her usual composure had cracked down the middle. That was hospital legal. They just received a subpoena. Federal investigators want all personnel files, credentialing documents, and internal communications for the past 5 years. Olivia's stomach dropped. Why? Because someone's been feeding them information, detailed information, staff complaints, incident reports, credential discrepancies that shouldn't exist but somehow do in our database. Walsh pulled out her phone and showed Olivia the screen. Look at this. It was an email thread. The sender was listed as an anonymous whistleblower account, but the recipient was a federal oversight board. Olivia scrolled through the messages, dozens of them, going back months, all alleging systematic fraud at Riverside Veterans Memorial Hospital. And buried in the middle of the thread was her name. Olivia Marshall employed as senior trauma nurse despite incomplete credentialing and falsified military service records. Performing advanced medical procedures without proper authorization. Hospital administration aware and covering up violations to maintain federal funding. The words blurred. Olivia read them again to make sure she wasn't hallucinating. This is insane. None of this is true. I know that. Legal knows that. But it doesn't matter if someone's created a paper trail that says otherwise. Walsh took her phone back. The email account traces to an IP address registered to the hospital network. Whoever sent these messages did it from inside our system. Torres spoke up from the bed. Cross. Has to be. Cross resigned and checked himself into psychiatric care, Walsh said. He doesn't have network access anymore. Then someone who still does is helping him. Reeves stood up from his chair in the corner. Or someone who wanted to discredit Captain Marshall and used Cross's complaints as cover. Olivia's mind was moving too fast. The pieces didn't fit. Cross had humiliated her in the cafeteria, resigned in disgrace, admitted fault. Why would he then launch a federal investigation that would destroy both her and the hospital? Unless destroying the hospital was the point. Who benefits if Riverside loses federal funding? Olivia asked. Walsh's expression went cold. St. Catherine's Medical Center. They've been trying to absorb our veteran patient population for years. We're the only dedicated VA hospital in the region. If we go under, those patients have nowhere else to go except St. Catherine's, which means millions in federal contracts redirected to their facility. And who sits on St. Catherine's board of directors? Walsh pulled out her phone and searched. Her face went white. Dr. Raymond Pierce. He's been on their board for 3 years. The room went silent. Pierce, the neurosurgeon who'd wanted to operate on Torres, who'd fought against Olivia's protocol, who'd shown up after Torres woke up looking disappointed. He knew the surgery would kill Torres, Olivia said quietly. That's why he pushed for it. One more preventable death to add to the investigation file. That's a serious accusation, Walsh said, but her voice was shaking. Is it? Think about it. Cross files complaints 3 months ago alleging credential fraud. That triggers a federal investigation. Then Pierce shows up during a mass casualty event and tries to perform a surgery he knows will fail. When I stop him, he objects on the record, creating documentation that the hospital is allowing unauthorized personnel to override qualified surgeons. Either way, he wins. Torres dies. It proves Cross's allegations about unqualified staff. Torres lives. It proves the hospital lets nurses countermand doctors. Reeves let out a low whistle. That's elaborate. That's also hard to prove, Walsh said. Pierce is a respected neurosurgeon. He has 30 years of exemplary service. No one's going to believe he'd sabotage a patient for financial gain. Then we make them believe it. Torres tried to sit up again. Olivia moved to help him. I'm the patient he tried to kill. I'm the one who's still alive because Captain Marshall stopped him. My testimony proves she saved my life and his protocol would have ended it. Your testimony also proves you're biased, Walsh said gently. You're emotionally invested in defending the person who saved you. That's admirable, but it won't hold up under scrutiny. Olivia's phone buzzed. Text from Colonel Briggs. Just got word about federal investigation. This is bigger than you know. Call me ASAP. She dialed. He answered before the first ring finished. Liv, where are you? ICU, Riverside Memorial. Get out of there, now. What? Why? Because federal agents are en route to execute search warrants and seize hospital records. Someone at DOD flagged your name in connection with unauthorized access to classified materials. They're treating this as a national security issue. Olivia's blood went cold. Colonel, listen to me. I've seen this playbook before. Someone's trying to bury you, and they're using the federal bureaucracy to do it. You need legal representation immediately. I didn't do anything wrong. I know. But right now, optics matter more than truth. And the optics are that you kept classified medical records without authorization and used them to justify experimental treatment on a federal contractor. Briggs paused. There's more. Cross didn't check himself into psychiatric care voluntarily. He was admitted on a 72-hour hold after attempting suicide. The room tilted. Olivia grabbed the edge of Torres's bed for support. He left a note, Briggs continued. Says he was coerced into filing false complaints against Riverside Memorial. Says someone threatened to destroy his career and his family if he didn't cooperate. The note names Raymond Pierce. Does anyone else know about this? Not yet. But they will. Cross's brother is bringing the note to federal investigators this morning. Olivia closed her eyes. How bad is this going to get? Depends on how fast we move. I'm making calls, getting you representation. But Liv, you need to be smart here. Don't talk to anyone without a lawyer present. Don't sign anything. Don't. The ICU bay door burst open. 4 people in dark suits and federal badges entered like they owned the place. The lead agent held up credentials. Olivia Marshall? I'm Special Agent Victoria Park, Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have questions regarding your access to classified medical records and your involvement in the treatment of Sergeant Michael Torres. Olivia lowered her phone. Am I under arrest? Not yet, but you need to come with us. She's not going anywhere without legal counsel, Reeves said, standing up. Agent Park barely glanced at him. Sir, this doesn't concern you. Actually, it does. I'm a witness to everything that happened in this room. And I'm telling you that Captain Marshall saved a man's life while following proper medical protocol. That's not our concern. Our concern is how she obtained classified military medical records and whether she violated federal law in retaining them. Walsh stepped forward. Agent Park, as hospital director, I take full responsibility for Captain Marshall's actions. She was operating under my authority during a medical emergency. Director Walsh, you're also under investigation. I'd advise you not to make statements that could be used against you later. The room was closing in. Olivia could feel it, the walls, the questions, the weight of federal investigation crushing down like atmosphere before a storm. Then Torres spoke. His voice was weak but clear. Agent Park, I'm Sergeant Michael Torres, the patient everyone's arguing about, and I need to tell you something about classified medical records. Park turned to him. Sergeant, you should rest. This doesn't... 4 years ago in Kandahar, I took a piece of shrapnel to the head. Captain Marshall saved my life using a protocol she developed specifically for my condition. Before I was extracted, she asked me if I wanted a copy of my medical files. She said they might save my life again someday. Torres met Park's eyes. I said yes. I signed release paperwork authorizing her to retain copies of my medical treatment records for emergency purposes. That's not unauthorized access. That's a patient exercising his right to medical records. Park's expression flickered. Do you have documentation of this release? It's in my personal records. Military Medical Administration in Kandahar can confirm it. That'll take time to verify. Then take the time. Torres's voice got stronger. Because what you're doing right now is investigating someone for saving my life. And I won't let that stand. Park studied him for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone and stepped into the hallway. Olivia's phone buzzed again. Briggs. Stall them. Help is coming. 2 minutes passed like hours. Park came back in. Her expression had changed, less aggressive, more uncertain. We're going to need to verify Sergeant Torres's claims. In the meantime, Captain Marshall, you're not to leave the city without notifying us. Understood? Understood. The agents left. The ICU bay felt too quiet after they were gone. Olivia sank into her chair and put her head in her hands. That release form, Walsh said carefully. Did it really exist? Torres looked at her. Yes, every word I said was true. But you'd forgotten about it until just now. No, I remembered it the second Captain Marshall walked into this room. Torres smiled slightly. I just waited to mention it until it mattered most. Reeves let out a laugh that sounded like relief breaking through concrete. You sneaky bastard. I learned from the best. Torres looked at Olivia. Captain Marshall taught me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is know when to speak and when to stay quiet. Olivia lifted her head. I never taught you that. Yes, you did. In Kandahar, when everyone was screaming and panicking and you just worked in silence. You didn't waste words. You didn't waste motion. You just did what needed to be done. Torres paused. That's what I just did. Walsh's phone rang. She answered it, listened, and her entire posture changed. When? Are you sure? A pause. Yes, I'll inform the staff immediately. She ended the call and looked at everyone in the room. That was hospital legal. Federal investigators just raided St. Catherine's Medical Center. They found emails between Dr. Pierce and several board members discussing how to force Riverside into bankruptcy. Apparently, Cross's note was very detailed about who pressured him and how. Olivia's brain struggled to process it. Pierce is being investigated? Pierce is being arrested, along with 3 other St. Catherine's board members. Conspiracy to commit fraud, filing false federal complaints, witness tampering. Walsh's voice shook slightly. It's over. The investigation into Riverside is being dropped. The room erupted. Reeves grabbed Olivia in a hug that lifted her off her feet. Torres was grinning from his hospital bed. Walsh actually laughed, a sound of pure relief. But Olivia felt numb. It was over. The threat was gone. The investigation was dropped. She wasn't going to be arrested or prosecuted or destroyed. So why did she feel like she was standing on the edge of a cliff? Walsh's phone rang again, then again. The hospital was waking up to the news. Within an hour, reporters would be everywhere. The story would explode. Corruption, conspiracy. The nurse who'd saved lives while others tried to destroy her career. Olivia walked out of the ICU bay without saying anything to anyone. She made it to the stairwell before her legs gave out. She sat on the concrete steps and stared at the wall and tried to remember how to breathe. Footsteps above her. Reeves appeared on the landing. Figured you'd need some air. I need to not exist for a while. Can't help you with that. He sat down beside her. But I can sit with you while you process. They sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Olivia spoke. I should feel relieved, vindicated, something, but all I feel is tired. That's normal. Is it? You've been fighting for so long that you forgot what it feels like when the fighting stops. Reeves leaned back against the wall. Your body doesn't know what to do with peace. It's waiting for the next attack, the next crisis, the next thing that needs saving. So what do I do? You figure out who you want to be when you're not in survival mode. Olivia looked at him. What if I don't know? Then you start trying things until something feels right. Reeves stood up and offered her his hand. But first, you go back in there and let people thank you. Because whether you want it or not, you're a hero to everyone in this hospital. And sometimes letting people say thank you is the hardest thing we do. She took his hand and stood. They walked back to the ICU together. The bay was crowded now. Nurses, residents, even a few patients who'd heard the news and wanted to see the woman who'd saved Torres and exposed the conspiracy. Walsh was fielding phone calls. Torres was sitting up fully, color returning to his face, vitals stable. Dr. Kim approached Olivia with tears in her eyes. I just want to say, what you did for Sergeant Torres, the way you fought for him when everyone said to give up, that's the kind of doctor I want to be. I'm not a doctor. You're better than most doctors I know. Kim wiped her eyes. Thank you for showing me what real medicine looks like. More people wanted to talk, to shake her hand, to tell her their stories about times they'd been overlooked or dismissed or told they weren't good enough. Olivia listened to all of them and felt something shifting inside her chest. Not healing exactly. Healing took time and help and hard work. But maybe the start of it. A crack in the armor she'd built where light could get in. Around noon, Colonel Briggs showed up in full dress uniform. He walked through the ICU like he owned it and stopped in front of Olivia. Captain Marshall. She stood. Colonel? I have an offer for you. Final one. He pulled out an envelope. Training Command approved the program. Field medicine for combat medics. Real-world scenarios. I need someone to run it who's actually been there. Someone who knows what it's like when everything goes wrong and you have to make it right anyway. Olivia took the envelope but didn't open it. What if I'm not ready? What if ready is just another word for comfortable, and comfort is what gets people killed? Briggs softened slightly. I'm not asking you to go back to war, Liv. I'm asking you to help make sure the next generation comes home alive. That's a lot of weight. Yeah, but you've been carrying a lot of weight your whole life. Difference is, this time you'd be carrying it with support. A team, resources. People who understand what you've been through because they've been through it too. Olivia looked at the envelope in her hands. Then at Torres, alive and recovering. At Reeves, watching with quiet understanding. At Walsh, fielding calls and fighting to keep the hospital running. At all the faces in the ICU who saw her as something more than she saw herself. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. Briggs headed for the door, then stopped. But Liv, whatever you decide, know that what you did here matters. You saved lives. You exposed corruption. You proved that doing the right thing is worth the cost. He paused. That's not nothing. He left. Walsh approached. The board wants to meet with you tomorrow. Officially offer you the senior trauma position. Full authority. Leadership role in emergency preparedness. Competitive salary. Basically whatever you want. And if what I want is to leave? Walsh's expression didn't change. Then we'll throw you a party and wish you well, but I hope you stay. This hospital needs people who remember why we do this work in the first place. She walked away before Olivia could respond. Olivia stood in the middle of the ICU, feeling like she was at a crossroads with too many paths and not enough information to choose. Her phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. She almost deleted it without reading. Then she saw the message. Captain Marshall, this is Daniel Cross, Nathan's brother. I wanted you to know that Nathan woke up this morning and asked about you. He wanted to know if you were safe, if the truth had come out. When I told him everything that happened, he cried. Then he said to tell you that destroying yourself won't undo what he did, that the best apology is becoming someone worthy of forgiveness. I don't know if that means anything to you, but he wanted you to know. Also, he's testifying against Pierce and the others. Full cooperation. He said if his mistakes can help protect you and the hospital, then at least they'll mean something. Take care of yourself, Captain. Olivia read it twice. Then she walked to Torres's bedside. He was eating pudding, a good sign that his brain was functioning normally. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a building, but alive, thanks to you. Torres set down the pudding. What are you going to do now? I don't know. That's honest. He smiled. Can I give you some advice? Go ahead. After you saved me in Kandahar, I spent a year trying to figure out how to repay you, how to earn the second chance you gave me. I drove myself crazy trying to be worthy of it. Torres paused. Then my daughter said something that changed everything. She said the best way to honor a gift is to use it, not to prove you deserved it, but because you have it. Olivia felt something crack behind her ribs. You gave me my life back twice now, Torres continued. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use it, help people, be better, make it count. He met her eyes. You should do the same, not because you owe anyone anything, but because you have the gift of being alive and skilled and needed, and that's worth using. What if I'm not strong enough? You held an evacuation corridor under enemy fire for 12 hours. You saved my life twice using protocols you invented on the spot. You exposed a conspiracy and saved this hospital. Torres laughed. If you're not strong enough, the rest of us are screwed. Olivia felt tears building and fought them back. It's okay to cry, Captain. The strongest people I know are the ones who let themselves feel things. The tears came anyway. She let them. Heck. 3 days later, Olivia sat in the hospital garden where this had all started. The same bench, the same view. But everything felt different. Her phone had been exploding with messages, job offers from other hospitals, interview requests from media outlets, messages from veterans she'd served with in Kandahar who'd seen the news and wanted to reconnect. She'd ignored most of them, but one message she'd read over and over. It was from Margaret Walsh. The board meeting is at 10 a.m. tomorrow. You don't have to decide anything today. But I hope you'll at least hear what we have to say. You've earned that much. Olivia looked at the envelope from Colonel Briggs. Still unopened, still waiting. 2 paths, both leading somewhere she couldn't quite see. Footsteps on the gravel path. Thomas Reeves appeared with 2 cups of coffee. Figured I'd find you here. He handed her a cup and sat down. They drank in comfortable silence for a while. I went to the Thursday meeting last night, Reeves said finally. People were asking about you. What did you tell them? That you were figuring some things out? That you'd come back when you were ready? He paused. One of the guys, veteran from Iraq, said something interesting. He said the hardest part about coming home wasn't the memories or the nightmares. It was learning that you're allowed to want things for yourself again. Olivia stared at her coffee. What do you want, Olivia? The question hung in the air like a challenge. What did she want? Not what she should want. Not what others needed from her. Not what would make the best story or the most sense. What did she actually want? She thought about Torres waking up alive. About the young nurse who said Olivia showed her what real medicine looked like. About standing in the ER during a crisis and feeling like she was exactly where she belonged. She thought about Kandahar. About the 41 lives she saved and the 3 she lost. About carrying that weight alone for 4 years. She thought about Colonel Briggs's offer. About teaching the next generation. About turning trauma into something useful. She thought about this hospital. About veterans who had nowhere else to go. About being part of something that mattered. I want to stop running, she said quietly. I want to stop pretending I'm not who I am.
I want to help people without destroying myself in the process. She looked at Reeves. Is that possible? I don't know, but I think it's worth trying to find out. Olivia pulled out her phone and opened 2 messages. To Walsh. I'll be at the meeting tomorrow. I'm ready to talk.
To Briggs. Tell Training Command I need 6 months. 6 months to get my head straight and prove to myself I can do this work without breaking. Then we'll talk about your program. She hit send on both. Reeves raised his coffee cup. To New Beginnings. Olivia clinked her cup against his. To figuring it out as we go. They sat in the garden as the sun moved across the sky and the hospital hummed with its endless rhythm of crisis and recovery and people fighting to stay alive. The board meeting the next morning was surprisingly short. Walsh presented the offer. Senior trauma nurse position. Leadership in emergency preparedness. Competitive salary. Full support from the hospital administration. Olivia counteroffered. She wanted 6 months part-time, enough hours to stay sharp but not enough to drown. She wanted to work with the veterans group Reeves ran. She wanted oversight on credential verification to make sure what happened with Cross never happened again. And she wanted one thing that made Walsh pause. I want the authority to train nursing staff in field medicine protocols, real-world emergency response, the kind of training that saves lives when everything goes wrong. Olivia met Walsh's eyes. People are going to keep getting hurt. Buildings are going to keep collapsing. We can either be ready or we can scramble every time. I vote for ready. Walsh looked at the board members. They looked at each other. Done, Walsh said. All of it. You start Monday. Olivia stood and shook her hand. She walked out of the administrative building into morning light that felt different somehow, cleaner, brighter. Her phone buzzed. Text from Torres. Discharged today, clean bill of health. Neurologist says I'm a medical miracle. I told them miracles have names, and yours is Olivia Marshall. Thank you for everything. She smiled and pocketed her phone. The hospital parking lot stretched in front of her. Beyond it, the city. Beyond that, a future she couldn't quite see but was willing to walk toward anyway. Someone called her name. She turned. Dr. Kim was running toward her, slightly out of breath. Captain Marshall, Olivia, I wanted to catch you before you left. What's up? I just got assigned to emergency trauma rotation. I requested it specifically because of what I saw you do with Sergeant Torres. Kim paused. I was wondering if you'd be willing to mentor me. Teach me the things medical school doesn't cover, the real stuff. Olivia looked at this young doctor with hope in her eyes and remembered being that age, being that eager, being convinced she could save everyone if she just tried hard enough. I'll teach you what I know, but you have to understand something first. What? You can't save everyone. Some people are going to die no matter what you do. And when that happens, it's going to feel like you failed, like you weren't good enough or fast enough or smart enough. Olivia's voice went quiet. But you can't let that stop you from trying to save the next person. You carry the losses. You learn from them. But you keep moving forward. Kim nodded slowly. How do you do that? Keep moving forward? You find people who understand. You ask for help when you need it. And you remember that being strong doesn't mean being unbreakable. It means breaking and putting yourself back together and showing up anyway. That sounds hard. It is. But it's also worth it. Kim smiled. Then I'm in. They walked back into the hospital together. 6 months later, Olivia stood in front of a room full of combat medics at a military training facility 3 hours outside the city. Young faces, eager eyes, the same look she'd had a lifetime ago. Colonel Briggs introduced her. This is Captain Olivia Marshall, Phantom Wing Medical. She's going to teach you how to stay alive when everything goes wrong, how to save lives when textbooks say it's impossible, how to make hard calls under impossible pressure. He paused. Listen to every word she says. It might save your life someday. He left. Olivia stood in front of the room and felt every eye on her. My name is Olivia, she started. Not Captain, not ma'am, just Olivia. And before we begin, I need you to understand something. I'm not here to teach you how to be heroes. I'm here to teach you how to survive. She pulled up a scan on the projector. Torres's injury. The hematoma. The progression. This is a patient I treated twice. Once in Kandahar, once 6 months ago in a civilian hospital. Both times, standard protocol said he would die. Both times, I broke the rules and he lived. She paused. I'm going to teach you when to follow the rules and when to break them. I'm going to teach you how to make impossible decisions in seconds. And I'm going to teach you that saving lives costs something. Sometimes it costs everything. The room was silent. But I'm also going to teach you that the cost is worth it, that coming home alive matters, that the people you save remember you forever, and that the weight you carry doesn't mean you're weak. It means you cared enough to try. She looked at each face. We start tomorrow with trauma protocols. Tonight, I want you to write down why you're here, why you chose this path, what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're not. Keep that paper. When things get hard, and they will get hard, read it again. Remember why you started. She dismissed them. They filed out quietly, already processing. Briggs returned. That was good. Better than good. It was honest. That's why it was good. He handed her a folder. Next class starts in 3 weeks. 40 students. All of them requested you specifically after word spread about your protocols. Olivia took the folder. No pressure. You've handled worse. He left. Olivia stood alone in the training room and thought about everything that had led to this moment. The cafeteria, the humiliation, Cross's resignation, Torres's injury, the federal investigation, Pierce's arrest. All of it had broken her down to nothing. And in the nothing, she'd found something she'd lost years ago, purpose. Not the kind imposed by rank or duty or other people's expectations, the kind that came from knowing who you were and what you stood for and being willing to fight for it, even when fighting cost everything. Her phone buzzed. Message from the Thursday night veterans group. We're meeting tonight. Pizza at 6. You coming? She typed back. I'll be there. Another message. From Torres. Daughter's graduation next week. You're invited. She wants to meet the woman who gave me a second chance at being her dad. She smiled and responded, wouldn't miss it. One more message. From Walsh. ER is crazy tonight. Any chance you're available for a few hours? We could use the help. Olivia looked at the message. Then she looked at her hands. Steady. No shaking. She typed back, on my way. She walked out of this training facility into evening light that painted everything gold. Her car sat in the parking lot. Beyond it, the highway. Beyond that, the hospital. People who needed help. Lives that needed saving. A purpose worth the cost. She got in her car and drove toward it all. Because she'd learned something in the months since that day in the cafeteria, when a doctor tried to throw her out and accidentally set her free. Being strong didn't mean never breaking. It meant breaking and choosing to rebuild. It meant carrying weight without letting it crush you. It meant knowing your worth even when others tried to diminish it. It meant showing up again and again, even when showing up was the hardest thing in the world. The hospital appeared on the horizon, lights blazing, ambulances coming and going, the endless rhythm of crisis and recovery. Olivia Marshall pulled into the parking lot, grabbed her ID badge, and walked through the doors. Not because she had to, because she chose to. And in the choosing, she found the only truth that ever really mattered. She was enough, exactly as she was, broken pieces and all, and that was worth fighting for.